Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel Legal Decipher. In the previous video, we discussed about Chapter 6 of the Code of Criminal Procedure 1973. If you have not seen that video, you can go and check it. The link is in the description below. Today, we will discuss about Chapter 7 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. We will go through the chapter and try to understand how the criminal procedure is followed and how the criminal courts work. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel to get video notifications. So let's get started. So today we are going to talk about Chapter 7. Chapter 7 deals with processes to compel the production of things. In the previous video, we had talked about the production of the person. Okay. Now in this chapter, we will read about the process to compel the production of things, that is materials or goods. So section 91 talks about summons to produce document or other thing. So whenever any court or any officer in charge of a police station considers that the production of any document or other thing is necessary or desirable for the purpose of investigation, inquiry, trial or other proceedings. So if there is a material that is needed or a document that is needed for the purpose of investigation, inquiry, trial or proceedings, then the court or such officer may issue a summon or a written order to the person in whose possession or power such document is thought to be or believed to be, requiring him to attend and produce it. So an order or a summon may be issued upon that person to deliver such document or that material in whose possession such document or that material is believed to be. Any person required under this section merely to produce a document or a thing shall be deemed to have complied with the requisition if he causes such document or thing to be produced instead of attending personally to produce the same. When an summon or an order is issued upon such person, then such person has two things to do. Either he can personally appear and produce such document, or he can produce the document without personally attending. So he can do both. It will be thought that he had complied with the requisition if he does not personally appear, but if he causes the production of the material or document that is to be produced. So nothing in this section shall be deemed to affect the sections 123 and 124 of the Indian Evidence Act 1872. Now we will read about this when we learn the Indian Evidence Act. The Indian Evidence Act in section 123 or 124 talks about the affairs of the states that are to be given into evidence, and it is said that such evidences are not permitted to be given in evidence except the permission of the head of the state of the department from which such evidence is to be given. So this section does not disturb the provisions of section 123 and 124 of the Indian Evidence Act. And it also says that it does not apply to a letter, postcard, telegram or other document or any parcel or thing in the custody of the postal or telegraph authority. Now section 92 talks about procedures as to letters and telegrams. So what happens if any document, parcel or thing is in the custody of the postal or telegraph authority, then if the district magistrate or chief judicial magistrate or court of sessions or a high court wanted for the purpose of any investigation, inquiry, trial or other proceedings under this code, and such court requires the postal or telegraph authority to deliver the document, parcel or thing to such person as the magistrate or court directs, he can do so. So whenever the court thinks that such document or parcel or thing is necessary for the investigation, inquiry, trial, or other proceedings, then it may cause the telegraph authority or the postal service to deliver such document, parcel, or thing to such magistrate or such court as it is directed. If any such document, parcel, or thing is in the opinion of any other magistrate, whether executive or judicial, or commissioner of police or district superintendent of police, any one of these people, if it is in the opinion of them that the document, parcel, or thing is wanted for any such purpose, then he may require the postal or telegraph authority to cause a search to be made for and to detain such document, parcel, or things. So he can order a search and also he can detain such document, parcel, or thing if he thinks fit. Now, section 93 talks about when search warrant may be issued. So when is a search warrant issued? Where the court has reasons to believe that it has sent a summon under section 91 or under 92, and even after that the person who is addressed will not or would not produce the document or thing as required by the summons or requisition. So upon whom the summon is issued will not or would not produce the document or thing as required. In this case, the court may issue a search warrant, or where such document or thing is not known to the court to be in possession of any person. The court does not know in whose possession such document or thing is. And there is another instance where search warrant may be issued. It says that when the court considers that a general search or inspection would serve the purposes of the inquiry, trial, or other proceedings. It just says that a general search or inspection would serve the purpose. In these cases also, the court may issue a search warrant. And in all these cases, the court may, if it thinks fit, specify in the warrant about the particular place or part where such search is to be conducted. So it may be mentioned in the search warrant, if the court thinks fit, that a particular place or a part of that place shall be searched. So it may mention it in the search warrant. And the person who is charged with the execution of such warrant shall only search or inspect those places or parts that are mentioned in the search warrant. Now, nothing contained in this section shall authorize any magistrate other than a district magistrate or chief judicial magistrate to grant a warrant of search for a document, parcel, or other thing in the custody of the postal or telegraph authority. So it is not in the power of a magistrate of the first class to issue a search warrant for a document, parcel, or other thing in the postal or telegraph authority. It is the power of the district magistrate or a chief judicial magistrate to grant such warrant. Now, section 94 talks about search of place suspected to contain stolen property, forged documents, etc. So, if a district magistrate, subdivisional magistrate, or magistrate of the first class has information, and after such inquiry as he thinks necessary, or has reasons to believe that any place is used for the deposit of sale of stolen property, or for the deposit, sale, or production of any objectionable article to which this section applies. So, if any district magistrate, subdivisional magistrate, or magistrate of the first class has information or has conducted an inquiry or has reasons to believe that there is a certain place where stolen properties are deposited for sale, or they are just deposited for sale or production of any objectionable article to which this section applies, then what will he do? He may authorize any police officer above the rank of a constable. So he will authorize a police personnel who will be above the rank of a constable to enter with such assistance as may be required into such place, that you go and enter into that place and search the same manner specified in the warrant. So he will specify in the warrant about how to make the search and to take possession of any property or article found therein which is reasonably suspected to be a stolen property or objectionable article. So he will enter into that place, make a search and take possession of any property or objectionable article that is found therein, that is believed to be a stolen property or an objectionable article. So after this he will convey such property or article before the magistrate, okay, or to guard the same on the spot until the offender is taken before a magistrate, or otherwise dispose of that article or property to some place of safety, and to take into custody and carry before the magistrate every person found in that place who appears to have been privy to the deposit, which means he will take into custody any person who is found there and is believed that he is somehow linked to that deposit, sale or production of such stolen property or objectionable article. Now, what are objectionable articles according to this section? The following are the objectionable articles, such as counterfeit coin, pieces of metal made in contravention of Metal Tokens Act or brought into India in contravention with any notification for the time being in force under section 11 of the Customs Act 1962. So if it is a counterfeit coin or a piece of metal that has been made in contravention with this act, or any other article that is brought into India against the section 11 of the Customs Act, or it is a counterfeit currency note or a counterfeit stamp or a forged document or a false seal or any obscene object referred to in section 292 of the Indian Penal Code. We'll read about this when we read the Indian Penal Code. So if any of this is found, or instruments or materials used for the production of any of the articles mentioned from A to F, so all these will be objectionable articles and they will come under this section. Now section 95 talks about power to declare certain publications forfeited and to issue search warrants for the same. So where any newspaper or book or any other document wherever printed appears to the state government to contain any matter the publication of which is punishable under sections 124A, 153A, 153B, 292, 293 and 295A of the Indian Penal Code. So let me give you a brief discussion. 124A talks about the punishment of sedition. 153A and 153B are sections relating to hurting religious sentiments by such and such ways mentioned therein, and 292, 293 and 295A deals with obscene books and materials and that kind of stuffs. So wherever the state government is sure of any newspaper, book or document to have published with contents or matters that are punishable under these sections, then it may declare every copy of the issue of such newspaper or book containing such matter to be forfeited. Okay, so it will forfeit those newspapers or books, and it may thereupon authorize any police officer to seize the same wherever found in India. So any copy of the newspaper, book or document that is found anywhere in India may be seized, and any magistrate may by warrant authorize any police officer who will not be a police officer below the rank of a sub-inspector to enter upon and search on any premises where such copy of such issue is presumed to be or suspected to be there. So subsection 2 says that in this section and the next section, the newspaper, book, etc., those terms have the same meaning as in the Press and Registration of Books Act 1867, and document includes any painting, drawing or photograph or other visible representations. Now subsection 3 says no order passed or action taken under this section shall be called in question in any court otherwise than in accordance with the provisions of section 96. So only section 96 will be applicable to challenge this order, otherwise no question will be called in any court against any order passed under section 95. Now let's talk about the only procedure to set aside such declaration of forfeiture, that is mentioned in section 96. It says an application to the High Court shall be made to set aside such declaration of forfeiture, that any person who has any interest in any newspaper, book or other document that in respect of which such declaration of forfeiture has been made under section 95 may within 2 months. So the limitation period is 2 months. So that person will have to apply before the High Court within 2 months from the date of publication of such declaration in the official gazette, and he will apply to the High Court to set aside such declaration on the grounds that the issue of such newspaper or book or other document of which we are talking about, it does not contain any of the matters that are referred to in subsection 1 of section 95, and on that ground such declaration of forfeiture shall be set aside. So every such application shall, where the High Court consists of 3 or more judges, be heard and determined by a special bench of the High Court composed of 3 judges. Or where the High Court consists of less than 3 judges, such special bench shall be composed of all the judges of that High Court. So such application will be heard by a minimum of 3 judges special bench of the High Court, and where in any High Court there are not 3 judges, then a special bench shall be composed of all the judges of that High Court, and such matter will be heard before that special bench. So on hearing of any such application, any copy of such newspaper or book or any other material against which such declaration of forfeiture has been made shall be given in evidence as to the nature and tendency of the work, sign or visible representation that is contained in such newspaper or that issue or copy. And if the High Court is not satisfied with the contents of such matter, and if the High Court is of the opinion that there is no such reasons to declare a forfeiture for such issue, then it may set aside the declaration of forfeiture. Okay, so the High Court needs to be satisfied that there are grounds. Okay, if there are no grounds, then it may set aside the declaration of forfeiture, if it is of the opinion that there is no such grounds that are mentioned in section 95 subsection 1. So where there is a difference of opinion among the judges forming the special bench, the decision shall be in accordance with the opinion of the majority of those judges. So if there is a difference of opinion, say for example, out of those 3 judges of the special bench, 2 judges are in the favor of dismissing forfeiture and 1 judge is in the favor of continuing with the forfeiture, then the opinion of those 2 judges will prevail over that 1 judge who is in favor of continuing with the forfeiture. So section 97 and 98 talks about search for persons. Okay, so 97 talks about search for persons wrongfully confined. So if any district magistrate, subdivisional magistrate or magistrate of the first class has reasons to believe that any person is confined under such circumstances that the confinement amounts to an offence, so is wrongfully confined, then such magistrate may issue a warrant, a search warrant, and such person to whom such warrant is directed conduct the search, and if such person is found, that person will immediately be taken before the magistrate from whom such order was made. Okay, now let's talk about section 98. It says power to compel restoration of abducted females. So upon complaint made on oath, so there must be a complaint made on oath. That means a complaint supported with an affidavit that there is an abduction or unlawful detention of a woman or of a female child who is under the age of 18 years. For what? For unlawful purposes. Then the district magistrate, the subdivisional magistrate, or the magistrate of the first class may make an order for immediate restoration of such woman to her liberty. So either the order will be for the liberty of such woman or the female child to her husband, parent, guardian, or any other person who has the lawful charge of such child, and may compel such compliance with order using necessary force. So the magistrate may also allow force to be used that is necessary for immediate restoration of liberty of such woman or female child. Now let's move on to general provisions related to searches. Section 99 says that directions of search warrant. So the provisions of these sections will so far as may be applied to all search warrants issued under section 93, 94, 95 or 97. So what are in these sections? You can watch the previous videos and learn about these sections. So these provisions will apply to all search warrants that are executed under section 93, 94, 95 and 97. Now let's move on to section 100. Persons in charge of closed places allowed to search. So if the search is to be made in a closed place and any person is residing in this closed place or being in charge of such closed place, then on the demand of the officer who is about to search, such person who is in charge or is residing in such closed place will allow free ingress to such police officer and afford all reasonable facilities for a search therein. And if ingress into such place cannot be obtained, then the provisions of section 47 subsection 2 will be followed. What is there in section 47 subsection 2? We have learned in the previous video that it talks about all the necessary steps that a police officer can take, like breaking into a premises or breaking into an inner or outer door or any window, etc. So these steps or measures can be taken by the police officer in this case as well. So where any person is reasonably suspected of concealing about any article of which the search is to be made, and if such person is a woman, then regard to decency shall be strictly followed. Okay, so if the person is concealing the item that is to be searched, then such person needs to be searched. Okay, such person will also be searched, and if that person is a woman, then regard to strict decency will be followed. Now before making a search under this chapter, the police officer shall call upon two or more independent and respectable inhabitants of the locality. Why? Because a search always needs a witness. So two persons of the same locality will be called upon to be witness of the search, and if there is no inhabitant present at that time in that locality, then two inhabitants from other locality may also be called for such purposes. Now, so after making the search in the presence of those two witnesses, the police will make a list. The police will prepare a list of all the things that are seized all the things and articles that are seized in course of that search. Okay, and such list will be called the seizure list, and such seizure list will be signed by those two persons who were present there as witnesses, but these witnesses will not be required to attend the court as witnesses unless they are specially summoned for it. Okay, now the occupants of the place that was being searched or any person in this behalf shall have permission to attend during the search into such premises, and a copy of the list that is to be prepared after the search shall be delivered to such occupant or persons. And when any person is searched under subsection 3, a list of all things taken into possession from him shall be noted down in a list, and a copy of that list will be delivered to the person from whom such articles were seized. And any person who without reasonable cause refuses or neglects to attend and witness a search under this section when called upon to do so, he will be deemed to have committed an offence under section 187 of the Indian Penal Code. We will read about this more when we talk about Indian Penal Code, when we learn about Indian Penal Code. Now section 187 talks about omissions to assist public servant when bound by law to give assistance. So they will be punished under that section. Now section 101 talks about disposal of things found in search beyond jurisdiction. So what will happen to a thing that is found in execution of a search warrant beyond the jurisdiction of the court who issued such search warrant? How will such thing recovered in such search will be disposed? So in this case, the things that were found along with the list that was prepared, both of these will be immediately taken before the court that has issued such warrant. Okay. Now if any other magistrate is nearer to that place and who has jurisdiction over such place, then that seized articles and that list will be taken immediately to the magistrate having jurisdiction over that area who is nearby. And if there are no good causes to the contrary, such magistrate will authorize them to be taken to the court from where such search warrant was issued. Now section 102 talks about power of police officer to seize certain property. So any police officer may seize any property which may be alleged or suspected to have been stolen, or which may be found under circumstances which create suspicion of the commission of any offense. So if the property is alleged or suspected to be stolen or found under suspicious circumstances, suspicion as to the commission of any offense, then such property will be seized by the police officer. And such police officer, if he is a subordinate to the officer in charge of a police station, then he shall report such seizure to that officer. Okay. Now every police officer who has made such seizure shall forthwith report it to the nearby magistrate having jurisdiction, and such property seized, if it cannot be conveniently transported to the court. Okay. So if the property cannot be conveniently transported to the court, say for example the property is of such nature that it cannot be conveniently transported to that magistrate, then the police officer may give custody of that particular thing to any person and execute him a bond that he undertakes to produce the property before the court when it is required, and shall give effect to further orders of the court as to the disposal of the same. Now what will happen if the property that is seized under subsection 1 is subject to speedy or natural decay? Then in that case, if the person who is entitled to the possession of such property is unknown or absent, and the value of such property is less than 500 rupees, then it may be forthwith sold by auction under the orders of the superintendent of police, and the provisions of section 457 and 458, which we will read about later in this code, shall be applicable as far as practicable. Now section 103 says magistrate may direct search in his presence. So a magistrate, if he is present at the place of search, then he may direct a search in his presence of any place that he is competent to issue a search warrant. Now section 104 says power to impound document etc. produced. So any court, if it thinks fit, may impound any document or thing that is produced before it under this code. Impound means to take control and seize that property. Now let's move on to the last section of this chapter. The section 105 talks about reciprocal arrangements regarding processes. So where a court in the territories to which that court extends desires, so any court upon which the code of criminal procedure is binding, that court, if it desires that a summon to an accused person, warrant for the arrest of an accused person, summon to any person requiring him to attend or produce a document other thing, or a search warrant issued by it shall be served or executed at any place. Okay, so in these cases, if the court desires that such summon or warrant is to be executed, then if it is within the local jurisdiction of a court in any state or area in India outside the said territories, then the summon or warrant shall be sent in duplicate by post or otherwise as the court may think fit to the presiding officer of that court to whom it is to be served or executed, and the provisions of section 68 shall apply. So the summon or warrant shall be sent to that particular presiding officer in a duplicate form by post, and section 68 shall apply in this case. Now, in any country or place outside India, in respect of which arrangements have been made by the central government or the government of such country for the service of execution of summon. Okay. So, if that place is outside the territories of India, then the central government or the government of such country will make arrangements for the service and execution of such summon or warrant in relation to the criminal matters, and it may send such summon or warrant in duplicate in such form directed to such court, judge or magistrate, and send to such authority for transmission as the central government may by notification specify in this behalf. So all these matters will be dealt with the help of central government. Now, where a court in the said territories has received any such summon or warrant or search warrant or a summon for production of documents or other things, then if it is issued by a court in any state or area in India outside the said territories, or a court or judge or magistrate in a contracting state, then it shall cause the same to be served or executed if it were a summon or warrant received by it from another court in the said territory. Then the application of such warrant or summon shall have the same application as any other warrant or summon issued by any other court in the said territory, okay, within its local jurisdiction. And a warrant of arrest has been executed, the person arrested shall be following the procedures prescribed in section 80 and 81. So if there is a person who is arrested under such warrant of arrest, then the person shall be dealt with in accordance with the procedures prescribed in section 80 and 81, and a search warrant as well will be dealt with the provisions of section 101. Now we have already learnt about section 80, 81 and 101. So all these provisions will be followed in this warrant of arrest or search warrants. provided that in case where a summons or search warrant received from a contracting state has been executed. Okay, so if it is received from a contracting state and it is executed, the documents or things produced or things found in the search shall be forwarded to the court issuing such summon or search warrant through such authority as the central government may specify. So it will also be dealt with the help of central government. So that's all in this video. If you like my videos, then don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.